Hi, I'm Alan Day, CEO and founder of State of Flux, and welcome to The Power of Three, a video series where we interview leading chief procurement officers and executives about three things that have influenced their careers. From books to bosses, from music to movies, we explore the three things that have shaped their success. Join us as we learn from the best of the business here on The Power of Three. Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of The Power of Three, and welcome for the first one for 2024, which is pretty cool. Thomas, I'm honoured to have you join me today. I'll get you to introduce yourself, and I'm going to ask you to talk about three roles that you've had throughout your career that have shaped your career. So
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. And it's also an honor for me to be the one who can open up this year of 2024, which seems to be an exciting one with a whole range of challenges. So, no, it's my honor. And I've seen some of the conversations you've had with other procurement leaders, and the idea is brilliant, right? So I look forward to the chat. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so who am I? So my name is Thomas Udesen. I'm actually Danish of origin, but spent most of my adult life outside of my country. I left the country in '93, and you mentioned three. Right now, I'm the CPO of Bayer, so the German life science company. I also have the honor of being on the board of the Together for Sustainability initiative, which is, I guess, it's the largest industry initiative that has successfully been driving topics of sustainability forward the last 12 years now. And I also have the pleasure of being the co-founder of the Sustainable Procurement Pledge, together with Bertrand Concoré, my partner in crime, who is equally impatient when it comes to progress on topics around sustainability and, of course, responsible buying. Three roles, you say? Three roles.
Yes, three roles.
Take me back. Three roles. I think I will. I thought a little bit about it, but I guess there are three sort of decades with sort of multiple roles within them. But the first decade, when I started working as an 18-year-old in Denmark, was really as a trader. I came part of the East Asiatic Company, which back then was sort of one of these very prominent trading houses with multiple activities focusing around Asia and trade, across the world. And I was a timber trader. So I ended up, first I started in shipping, and then I ended up in the timber trading division, which was really, really interesting because, of course, this got me already at that age very close to the topic of sustainability. The trade-offs that you see when you are in developing countries. We had the first sort of start of the whole FSC certification back then. So it also allowed me to move to Africa. I was spending a couple of years in Ghana. I was in Indonesia, also 5 years. So very, very formative part of my life. And I think that's also where my passion for business to business sort of got solidified. Then the next decade, after I took an MBA, was with Johnson & Johnson. Where this was really the age where strategic sourcing started to gain momentum. Many of you remember low-cost country sourcing and e-auctions and category management. And that was really the age around that. I moved to Switzerland and had a fantastic time working with an unbelievable group of very well-equipped and visionary procurement practitioners. And then the last decade that I'm in now is with Bayer, really moving, I guess, taking some of those experiences, getting into this procurement transformation age where it is about people and culture and technology, and how do we advance the role of procurement? How do we accommodate all these new expectations, which are legitimately put upon us in sort of getting the world's supply chains more transparent, more clear, more resilient. And that's been the last sort of decade. So it's not really roles, it's sort of decades. Yeah. That's what happens when you get above 50, right? You start talking in bigger blocks. But yeah, that would be it.
Thanks, Thomas. That's good. And I know sustainability kind of runs through your veins, and I feel like I'm talking to kind of the procurement rock star in that area. But if you kind of look at your career, what are three things that you would like to be known for throughout your career? And I'm assuming sustainability is on the top of that list, but but
Yeah.
but what are the three?
Yeah, I would say collaboration is a
Yeah.
big theme that I think has been throughout those 3 decades, and collaboration, within our organizations with budget holders, but equally and maybe even more important, collaboration with industry. Being very clear, where do we compete and where can we collaborate? And there are many areas, particularly around sustainability and transparency in supply chains, where collaboration is the only sensible approach. And
Yes. Yeah.
I was lucky when I joined Bayer, they had already co-founded 2 big industry initiatives, Together for Sustainability, as well as the Pharmaceutical Supply Chain Initiative. So the idea of collaboration with competitors and up and down the value chain was already there, right? And I had just the pleasure of, I guess, continuing on that one. So now with Sustainable Procurement Pledge, this is also a professional collaboration, right? Where we, within our broader procurement community, we are prepared to share knowledge and in a way democratize how do we actually get stuff done. So collaboration is one that I do think I'm passionate about. I also do think compassion. Throughout these changes that we have seen in procurement and organizations, you always have to right size the organization ever so often. And when that has happened, I've had a couple of examples where it really impacted a lot of people, where the result was that they basically lost their job, right? That the job no longer existed. And when these things happen and they impact people, I have certainly tried to the extent of my capability to put the people in the center and try to understand how do we help them through this period so that they land on their feet. So I think that's probably one of my biggest responsibilities when you are getting into right sizing, to do that in a compassionate way. So I've done my best, but maybe it's not good enough. But at least I try to keep compassion in that.
And compassion and collaboration go nicely together, right? You've got to be able to empathize, to be able to understand the other side, to be able to collaborate with them, and so on. So, yeah.
And
makes
in these
sense.
big sort of change programs, it's never the person's fault, right? It's never an individual. It's a system that you are trying to address, right? And in a way, being able to protect and honor the individual, even if the system is broken, I think that's just super important. And maybe the last one is a bit of a procurement champion. So I think we are part of an amazing function. There's almost no end to what is possible, and I do believe that I've done something to advance our function, our standing, within ourselves, within our community, but also how are we seen from the rest of businesses across the world. So. One of those areas is, of course, sustainability, but there are so many other things going on right now with technology, etc. So being a positive, hopefully, a transformation agent. That's in a way what I hope. So collaboration, compassion, and being a champion for this amazing function that we are part of.
Excellent. Well, 3 C's there.
I noticed, and maybe it's not an entire coincidence.
Yeah, very nice. I like it. So just as kind of frequent listeners will know, I then kind of drill into a few things to understand what makes you tick, really. So the next section we're going to look at things like 3 books that that have influenced you, or frankly you just like reading. So if we can start with that, and then we'll get into things like movies and bosses. But if we start with 3 books that you
3 books.
Like
okay.
Yes.
So I would start with Wilbur Smith. So when the lion feed. So all the stories around South Africa and how the Courtney family, became a present force in the Southern Africa and across Africa. And I read that at quite a young age, and I think it certainly triggered my interest in Africa, my appreciation of wildlife, but also the sort of the beauty and the roughness of nature or life in general. So that was a very formative book for me many years ago. More recently, a couple of years back, I read David Marquez' Turn the Ship Around, which is this amazing submarine captain who applied different leadership practices around empowerment and trying to get a team to feel much more engaged and understand the importance of everything they do in a submarine, where of course team and the outcomes are pretty critical, right? So if you have an accident in a submarine, I guess it's a really bad thing. But more importantly, these ideas that you can entrust humans with a lot of autonomy and power, it really requires that you as a leader is also prepared to facilitate that. And I thought that was an interesting book. And it's certainly also more recently that, now we are looking at another transformation within Bayer, where it is a lot around humanocracy and how do we create sort of more autonomy and speed and empowerment. A lot of those principles actually apply. So that's another one, Turn the Ship Around. Then very recently, I was spending a bit of time in a hospital in Uruguay after a rather unfortunate sort of accident. I read the book Die with Zero from Bill Perkins, and the idea is not sort of super novel, but the way he has articulated it is very powerful. And the idea is basically, don't die with a lot of money on your bank account. Make sure you live your life and all the things that you have worked hard to do while you are still able to enjoy it. And he talks about 3 phases. You have the go years, where we are, Alan, we can still get a lot of stuff done.
Well, of course.
The slow go, right, where already health and different restrictions apply, and then you have no-go years. So make sure that you don't sort of miss the opportunity to live life and do what you are passionate about. And if you have kids and you want to give them money, don't wait until you are dead. Give it to them earlier, because they really need the money when they are in their 30s, not when they are in their 50s or 60s themselves. So, very interesting, and it has certainly had an impact on how, my wife and me are planning our next couple of years. So that's a good book to read.
Yeah, very good. And keeping with the kind of, I suppose, almost relaxation theme, what are 3 movies that you've enjoyed or influenced you, or you just found a bit of fun?
Yeah. So also when I was young, I read Mario Puzo's The Godfather. And of course, when that one came out with Marlon Brando, Al Pacino, by the way, I'm a huge fan of his. I saw that, and I probably watched it many times. It's a long movie, but I've spent many hours watching that one, and I don't know why it's so interesting. I think there's a bit of history. There's a family story. There is about the emergence of crime. So justice as well. So there's it's I think it's very interesting. So definitely The Godfather. The next one would be the Blade Runner. So again, I think Harrison Ford is amazing, and it was, in a way, at least for me, the first sort of science fiction where it was really showcasing, this world of inequality and injustice, and where it was interesting. A lot of those things that were science fiction back then, subsequently has become science fact. And this idea of thinking about what is possible out there, and also be conscious that if you don't do the right things today, it may not be as rosy and as beautiful as you would want it to be, right? So I thought that was a super interesting.
I'm smiling because the first time I went to Tokyo, which was in the early mid 90s, I remember sitting in a outside a kind of beer place where they were serving yakitori. The Shinkansen bullet train was going overhead, and it was raining, and you're thinking, I'm in Blade Runner. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean that scene, right, with all the lights and the rain coming down. It's so
exactly.
clear in a way, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So and I also saw the second one, the 2030. Then the last one was Meet Joe Black. So
Okay.
Anthony
Yeah,
Hopkins, Brad Pitt, and I don't know. I remember it was one of the movies where I definitely got tears. About family and parenthood, and I guess again life. How do
yeah.
you leave a legacy for the people that matters for you? And so I thought that was a good movie as well. So that would be it: The Godfather, Blade Runner, and Meet Joe Black.
Okay. Very good. I like it. Um, so hopefully not in a Godfather moment, but um, flipping back to your career and just influences that you've had throughout your career, are there kind of three bosses that stood out? And I'd love to know why they stood out during your career.
So when I was 23, I was in a way dropped in the forest in Ghana. Um, there was a colleague who had malaria, and I was in the timber business back then,
Yeah,
and it was very unclear what was really going on. Communication didn't work, and there was a team that needed to be supported. So people were sort of looking for a volunteer in Europe, and I became, I guess, more voluntold than anything else. But I
yeah,
moved to
yeah,
Ghana, and my boss
yeah,
down there, Jan, was super fantastic. He was there with his family, and in a way took really good care of this young kid that was in a way given an enormous degree of responsibility, but within a frame of oversight. So he taught me certainly the whole aspect around work ethics,
yes,
resilience. It's definitely back then it was also a hardship location, really no communication. So
mm, mm,
things like accountability, if you say you're going to do it, this is what needs to happen. So maybe a bit tough, it could come across as being tough, but I think very compassionate, and I certainly had those lessons from him in Ghana.
amazing. Yeah,
After Ghana, I moved to Indonesia, and there my boss Henrik, I have to say, by that time I was when 25, 30 years old. Um, he's a master in commercial savviness. He spent his adult life in Asia, Indonesia, being incredibly strong around relationships. So
yeah,
supplier
yeah,
relationships. So how do you build trust, even though you may have to some extent diverging interests, and how do
yes,
you maintain these relationships really long term? Things like cultural sensitivity, obviously being out there, it was really a hot pot of different cultures that met in Asia, and
mm, mm,
I learned a lot from him around this, commercial savviness, relationships, and cultural sensitivity. Then after I
awesome.
took my MBA in UK, then my next boss was Ralph in Switzerland, and this was the era of really procurement. He came from
Yes,
P&G, super professional, amazing in category management, and also how do you orchestrate a marketplace? How do you
yeah,
make
yeah,
sure that the communication, the engagement is done in a way that has a big impact. A lot around organizational leadership, being the principle of being tough and fair was also
yeah.
one that I think he maintained very much. So from each of those three, I certainly have learned a lot, and I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing today had it not been for those three bosses.
Yeah, it's nice. It's interesting that they were kind of relatively early in your career. So, do you think that kind of shaped the direction you headed, or do you think that that certainly changed your trajectory at all?
I I never really planned things out.
Yes.
It head down, work hard, do good,
Yeah.
and things will come your way. And it's been a little bit like that. I guess the one intervention that I did was I decided to take an MBA,
Yes.
and pay for that myself, and in a way leave my experience as a timber trader towards something different. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but again, that was somebody who actually had done a lot of research, and who I didn't know about MBAs when that idea was planted in my head. So,
Yeah.
things. I guess those people are really, really important in making that change.
I agree.
There are loads of them, and I guess what I did was I went along with it, right? When these opportunities emerged, I don't think I ever said no. Very little things I said no to, right? Even though it was maybe hard to tell where that would take me.
Yeah. Excellent. So, three quotes that you find inspirational or that have helped shape as you've gone along. What would your three quotes be?
So the first one is Maya Angelou. You may have heard that. This is people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think when it comes to those transformations, and certainly when it comes to separation from people, or bringing closure to things that has been going on, I try to make sure that I keep that in mind, that it's about the feeling that you're creating with people.
Yeah.
Then I like Uncle Ben, but it's not the rice Uncle Ben. It's Spider-Man's uncle, who said, "With great power comes great responsibility," and it's one of those statements we've also used consistently with Sustainable Procurement Pledge. So I think that is really the case when it comes to us as procurement versus responsible practices in the supply chain. There is nobody
100% agree.
better position, right, than us to drive decarbonization, human rights. I mean, the protection of biodiversity. If it's not the procurement person, business to business, the rules of engagement to a very large extent is regulated by the procurement function as well as government here and there, right? But if we don't sort of step up to our responsibility, then the power we hold, shouldn't be given to people like us.
100% agree. I actually have used that one myself. I've got an article out there. I think it's called "With Great in brackets buying power comes great responsibility." So
yeah, no, it's so
completely
true.
agree.
And I think that's what we should also be super proud about. I mean, we sit on an enormous power. We don't necessarily always recognize that in our own company, right? Because we
Yes.
are, but what we are telling the salespeople in our suppliers at that level is hugely influential, and of course that's going to hit the other procurement people in those organizations at some point. And the whole idea of SPP is actually that across the value chain, the procurement people should start problem solving and figuring out how can we help each other, because we often get lost in translation by salespeople or other people who have, again, very different motives, and maybe more short-term orientation.
Okay.
So,
sorry, I interrupted you.
yeah, no, that's good. But
third one.
Uncle Ben. The other one, we're going back to Africa. It's the this African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think that's again linked with this collaboration. It's linked with what my experiences in the industries of Together for Sustainability, or what we are now doing with the Sustainable Procurement Pledge. This is beyond any of us. So we gotta sort of huddle up and start solving this together. Because if we don't do it, nobody really will. So that's
excellent. Okay, and just on the final piece, and just to kind of throw things up a wee bit, 3 music tracks that you like, that either get you up out of your seat or put you back in your seat to relax. What are your kind of 3 music tracks?
Yeah, honestly, that was the most difficult one. How can you ask about 3 songs? It's impossible, right? There's so many to choose from. But I in the end, I managed to I guess identify 3 which mean something for me. So Fleetwood Mac, Dreams is one. BSF, Best Song Forever, maybe type of thing. I like the lyrics. I like the story around it. It's about love. It's about human connections, and how things may not last forever. There are ends, and that we should also enjoy the things we have as long as we have them. So that's a good one. I like Fleetwood Mac generally. So, but that would be one.
Awesome. Yeah.
Then another one, Depeche Mode. I went to concert with them also in Copenhagen many years ago. And one of them that they have is People Are People.
Yes.
And again here, I think this is also around the basics of humanity, and people are people, and in a way highlighting the stupidity of conflict and wars, and how can it be that we are so alike, and yet we mess it all up. So there's a message in the lyrics and videos that resonates with me. And then there was you may remember him, Jean-Michel Jarre. So he did quite a number of sort of instrumental pieces. He was certainly a pioneer, and one of them was Oxygen, where I remember on a TV many years ago, I saw he was the first who had like a laser piano. And in hindsight, it was probably a fake thing, right? But it looked really impressive. He was on a stage and playing piano with laser shows and stuff. And I think what was so great with him is that he was very futuristic. He saw a trend around instrumental music and synthesizers that hadn't really emerged, and he was certainly taking it to the next level. So I would give him the vote, Jean-Michel Jarre with Oxygen.
I like that. And 3 ones we haven't had before, actually, Thomas, which is good. Yeah, so really good. I must say, as I've done this for a wee while now, we're quite an eclectic music-loving bunch in procurement. We've had, things like books, relatively, these kind of themes, but music, it's really interesting how eclectic procurement people actually are in terms of their musical tastes, which is great.
We get exposed to so much, stuff during our work life that sometimes we need to calm down from different levels. Maybe that's why we've evolved like that.
Very good. So to kind of wrap things up, I've got, and this has come from something we do at State of Flux, which is when we do a project or a meeting or any kind of key activity, we'll always look at 3 things that have gone well and 3 things that we'd like to improve. So when you stand back and look at your career, what do you say 3 things that have gone well, and what are your 3 things that will improve? And I'm not going to let you get away with 1 or 2. You've got to give me 3.
Okay. I like to believe that I have had a positive impact on advancing the position of procurement, that we as a community have improved, and we are more relevant and better positioned today than we were 20 years ago, and in a way playing the long game. It's not about here now, it's about where we're going to be in decades from now. So I think that's one thing I like to believe has gone quite well. Also, to do that, I think I have been open-minded to new ways of doing things. I mean, the last 30 years, I can say has been a constant change. It's everything has changed. New problems, new solutions, new technologies, and it's very easy to fall in love with the old ways. And with that, you sort of get lost. And some clever person once told me, and if the sort of speed of change outside of your window goes faster than inside your office, that's the first step to becoming a dinosaur. So I I, I do think I have been open-minded, and even when it brings discomfort,
Yes.
I have sort of gone along with it and tried to understand it. And then building our world community and building this sustainable procurement pledge, our ambassadors community, we almost 15,000 in 146 countries.
It's amazing.
That there's a connection made, which will evolve as we move into the future. I think that's just nice, right? That we are having so many people who are prepared to share knowledge and in a way.
It's amazing. Congratulations.
It's hard work. Yeah, but the idea isn't novel. It just took somebody to, I don't know, be mad enough to actually launch it and do it, because it's really the community who has taken it forward from this point onwards.
Excellent. And 3 things that you'd improve?
So if I think I could be more tech savvy. You could probably also see that yesterday as we were trying to, get this scheduled.
We got there in the end.
We got there in the end. New device and everything, but I could be a bit more tech savvy and understand more around, AI and all these things coming up here. So that's one thing. I think also, when time is tight. I think I could be also at times more patient and sort of go into the coaching, right, rather than telling. So there are moments where I tell more than I coach, and afterwards I'm like, oh, did I do that again? So that is an area where I can definitely improve. And then I have to say I love procurement so much. I think there is such a big opportunity for us that it also means that my receptiveness to opportunities and things outside of procurement is quite limited. So I do recognize there is lots of stuff outside of procurement, and I could be a bit more open to listen and explore those, but that's my love is preventing me from doing that at this stage.
Yeah. And so throughout your career, what kind of 3 pieces of advice would you give to our listeners, to those that are looking to start their career in procurement? What would your advice be?
I think first of all, focus on what matters. Get rid of all the stuff that's a distraction. Get rid of bad friends. Get rid of impossible relations. If you ask people to do bureaucratic stuff, stop it. Focus on what really matters, and be courageous to cut off the things that doesn't serve what you are ultimately trying to do. And don't be a prisoner of this is how we've always done it. So that's one.
Yeah.
Then I think the building your legacy, or in case of procurement, build our legacy. That we think of the stories we're going to tell to grandchildren, and it's maybe a bit too much of an ask if you're just starting the career, but it is important that there will be a point where you're looking back, and you will have to explain what was your role in driving, innovation, or driving technology, or driving responsibility, sustainability, so that you can look yourself in the mirror with pride and say, I did this, and it was for something better, right? I think that is something important to keep in mind. What impact did you actually have? And hopefully it's something you're proud of, and you can tell your grandkids. And then I think we are now in such a interesting period where the speed of technology and the advancement that seems to come at the back of AI and other sort of technologies is super interesting, right? There's certainly going to be new solutions to solve old problems as well, and the transition from the analog world that we have been raised in towards a digital is requires you to have such a open mind that you need to embrace this. And any technology has benefits and risks. When they found fire, it was fantastic. It could help cook and sustain life, but you could also burn yourself. Same with cars, right? Same with AI. So just because there is a dark side on a technology doesn't mean that we shouldn't embrace and explore the good things and then manage the bad things.
I was reading recently, and in fact, I've just finished an article about how we're moving from the information age. So when we grew up, we knew stuff. You learnt force equals mass times acceleration and things like that at school. But now children grow up with a phone that has all that information in it, and they don't need to know it. So what I've been reading about is how we're moving from this information age to the reputation relationship age, which is quite interesting. So your points earlier about collaboration, compassion, are going to be incredibly important. So the digital is still really important, but that takes care of the information side.
Yeah.
And our focus then needs to move to relationships and reputation, because if something goes wrong, your reputation goes like wildfire through a networked economy or a networked data.
And
so it's quite interesting.
Right? How cool is that for procurement practitioners? This is what we do, right?
Yeah.
We're good. That's so. Yeah. So I look definitely at the next steps in the future with optimism. I think it's a promising future, but it's not promised, and that's where each of us will have to pull our weight.
Thanks, Thomas. It's been amazing to catch up, and thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed it, and hopefully you enjoyed it as well.
Thanks for challenging me to reflect a bit, and great idea. So carry on your amazing work, Alan and team, and I'll see you out there.
Thanks, Thomas. Take care.